Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss a very fundamental aspect of human rights and fundamental rights. It is a sort of introductory lecture for all the topics which you are going to read or study or hear or see on human rights and fundamental rights. Just look at what Mahatma Gandhi has stated. It has always been a mystery to me how men can feel themselves honored by the humiliation of their fellow beings. This is the statement made by Mahatma Gandhi. One of the greatest writers on the evolution of Indian Constitution, Granville Austin, who wrote on Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation, stated in his book that the Indian Constitution is the first and foremost a social document. The majority of its provisions are either directly or indirectly aimed at furthering the goals of social revolution or attempt to foster this revolution by establishing the conditions necessary for its achievement. The core commitment of social revolution lies in Part 3 and Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, in the fundamental rights and in the directive principles of the state policy. These are the conscience of the Constitution. The fundamental rights and directive principles had their roots deep in the struggle for independence, and they were included in the Constitution in the hope and expectation that one day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India. After having the assessment of importance of these fundamental rights and also that of human rights, now we are going to discuss the evolution of human rights in its varied terms like natural law rights and then fundamental rights, Bill of Rights and all these things. Then we will see how far these human rights are incorporated in the provisions of the Indian Constitution. Human being's quest is to have his rights uninterfered, and that laid foundation for the demand of guaranteed rights. But as human beings are gregarious, want to live in the society, some of their rights are bound to be surrendered or sacrificed in the interest of society and security of state. Rights should not become suicidal pacts. However, certain rights which are considered as basic are sought to be protected against deprivation. These rights are condition precedents for fulfillment of physical and psychological personality development. These are the conditions of the life secured by the state to its subjects who reciprocate their allegiance and loyalty to the state. The status of any nation is judged based on the level at which it allows its citizens to enjoy their rights. The history of the mankind, if you see, is the history of the struggle to secure their rights. Elsewhere, during medieval period, the medieval intelligentsia started advocating for keeping certain rights beyond the vagaries of the rulers. Natural law is the idea that there are certain rational objective limits to the power of legislative rulers. The foundations of law are accessible to human reason, and it is from these laws of nature that human beings created laws to gain whatever force they have. Natural law theory asserts that there are laws that are immanent in nature, to which enacted laws should correspond as closely as possible. This view is frequently summarized by the maxim, an unjust law is not a true law. Lex injusta non est lex, in which unjust is often defined as the contrary to natural law. Natural law is closely associated with morality, and in historically influential versions, it is also stated as the intention of the God. Aristotle is often said to be the father of natural law. Like his philosophical forefathers, Socrates and Plato, Aristotle posited the existence of natural justice and natural right. Besides, it is an interpretation of the Saint Thomas Aquinas, who was a philosopher and theologian in the scholastic tradition, that is considered as the foremost classical proponent of natural theology. Locke and Rousseau philosophized and tried to preserve rights in social compact theory. The man is born with the title to perfect freedom and uncontrolled enjoyment of all the rights and privileges of law of nature. Inspired by Lockean philosophy, the Declaration of French Revolution 1789 proclaims the aim of all political associations is conservation of the natural and inalienable rights of man. The idea of securing the rights through a written agreement dated back to 1215 Magna Carta. Of course, it was subject to various amendments in 1216, 1217, 1225 AD. The ancient writs could not be taken away by any means except through the law of the Parliament. Thus, sovereignty of Parliament is retained. Wade observed that a British subject cannot claim his freedom to be guaranteed, but he can nevertheless protect himself by proceeding in the courts against those who interfere with his liberty. Democratic traditions and rule of law in England sustained these rights. Petition of Rights in 1628, Bill of Rights in England in 1689, the expression of Bill of Rights originated from England only. Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizens of France 1789 is a product of Industrial Revolution. Though the British North American Act 1867 did not contain Bill of Rights, the Canadian Parliament subsequently passed Bill of Rights. Even the erstwhile USSR Constitution, you will find incorporated certain rights. Even though Magna Carta of 1215 and Petition of Rights in England were mentioned to be the forerunners in the field of development of human rights, it is traced that the Constitution of the United States of America 1787 with its amendments in 1791 was the first modern constitution that gave concrete shape to the Bill of Rights, which gave necessary impetus for adopting such constitutionally guaranteed rights by the newly independent nations. It has variantly protected Lockean idea of life, liberty and property. Justice Jackson in West Virginia State Board versus Barnett observed that the very purpose of Bill of Rights was to withdraw certain subjects from the vicissitudes of political controversy to place them beyond the reach of legislature and officials. The rights that are guaranteed are variedly termed as human rights, fundamental rights and Bill of Rights. The variations in their content, if any, is minimal. What are these human rights? When you term these rights as human rights, you mean that these are those irreducible minimum rights which are required by a human being to live like a human being with worth and dignity. Human rights arise out of inhuman wrongs. Human rights are human concerns. The word human implies that if one treats others as human beings like him, human rights are taken care of. Treat a person like a human being and you will get a human being. That is the adage. Human rights include civil rights, economic rights, social rights and cultural rights and so many gamut of rights are included within the purview of human rights. At international level, if you can see the development of human rights, you will find that there was a failure of League of Nations. It did not guarantee any human rights as such, except certain minority rights. Lessons from World War II, bitter lessons, wherein innocent people were sucked into the vortex of violence. There lied a realization that there should be a guarantee for the human rights. Roosevelt has enunciated 4 fundamental freedoms. I must say that the expression human rights itself was coined during 1941 by Roosevelt. Prior to it, as we have noted, they were called as Bill of Rights, they were called as natural rights. Franklin D. Roosevelt has mentioned that freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear must be guaranteed to everybody, everywhere in the world. So that is his fundamental, rather, canvassing for human rights. San Francisco Conference in 1945, where the Committee of Nations wanted to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which has brought untold sorrow to mankind. Thus, at international level, the United Nations Charter, for the first time, it opens up with the expression, "We the people of United Nations." The preamble uses the expression, "We the people," which is different from that of the expression, "the high contracting parties," that was used in the Covenant of League of Nations. This reflects the prevailing mood and concern of the people of the world who suffered the scourge of war for no fault of theirs. It is an assurance to the people of the world given by the states that they strive for peace. Preamble makes a specific reference to fundamental human rights. The expression used is fundamental human rights. In the dignity and worth of human person, in the equal rights of men and women, thereby indicating universalization of human rights. Yet 7 places in the United Nations Charter, they have mentioned about human rights directly. One will find such reference in the preamble, purpose of the United Nations, responsibilities of the General Assembly, objectives of international cooperation, functions of Economic and Social Council, its responsibilities, objectives of Trusteeship Council. These are the 7 places wherein you will find reference to human rights. Economic and Social Council established a Human Rights Commission in 1946 itself. Subsequently, in 1993, General Assembly created Human Rights Commission. Commission on Human Rights replaced by Human Rights Council in the year 2006. Friends, you will find Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by General Assembly by 48 votes to none on 10th December 1948. It consisted of preamble and 30 articles covering both civil political rights as well as economic and cultural rights. The preamble expresses the commitment of faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of human person, and equal rights for men and women. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights specifies minimal conditions of dignified life and provides yardstick for any nation that believes in human rights to realize them. Though Universal Declaration of Human Rights was not a binding covenant, it gained its stature status and it has set the standards for achievement for newly independent nations. United Nations Charter and UDHR set the path to the newly independent nations to prepare their constitutional instruments, taking cue from them. Friends, I should remind you here that when Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted, India was working very seriously on its constitution. It is manifest that certain provisions of Universal Declaration of Human Rights were taken in framing fundamental rights and directive principles of the state policy. Look at the gamut of International Bill of Human Rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, just we have discussed. Besides that, a binding covenant was made, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It was adopted by General Assembly in 1966. It has entered into force in 1976. Similarly, there was another covenant on economic and social and cultural rights, which was adopted in the same year 1966, and it has also entered into force in 1976. There were two optional protocols. The member nations permit individuals or groups to report personal human rights violations directly to the United Nations Human Rights Commission or Committee, and that is the gist of two optional protocols. International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination in 1976. Another landmark convention was Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women in 1979. Convention on the Rights of the Child, that was also in the year 1989. There are scores of other conventions, declarations that are entered into by the Committee of Nations and then ratified by the member countries. Insofar as India is concerned, you will be hearing in other lectures how far India is able to adopt these conventions in practice. If you come to India, how India has guaranteed these rights, whether you call them as natural rights, or you call them as Bill of Rights, or you call them as human rights, how far we are able to guarantee to our people these rights. To learn about this, we may have to go back to the history a bit. Friends, I should tell you, the whole of freedom struggle rested on the vital plank of demanding equal rights on par with whites besides liberty. The demand for inviolable rights was implicit in the formation of Indian National Congress itself. In the Constitution of India Bill of 1895, they have mentioned series of rights like free speech, free state-sponsored education, equality of rights and self-government. These were the things that were mentioned in the Constitution of India Bill of 1895. Of course, it did not see the light. Series of resolutions of Indian National Congress between 1917 and 1919 were marked with repeated demand for equality and demand for civil rights of His Majesty Indian subjects, besides asking for the freedom. Rowlatt Act of 1919 gave more repressive powers to British police. Already there was Police Act of 1861 that was strengthened. However, for the demand of these rights, the touch of Indianness came with the entry of Mahatma Gandhi. At the same time, World War I added strength to the demand of the rights. Univocent's Commonwealth of India Bill of 1925 remarkably mentioned about 7 fundamental freedoms, which included individual liberty, freedom of conscience, expression, assembly, equality before law, free elementary education, and access to public places. Of course, 2 years later, Simon Commission was appointed to bring in some constitutional reforms. He did not bring much reform with regard to the rights. That we will discuss now. Madras Session of Congress 1927 established a committee to draft Swaraj Constitution. The impression was that the Indians cannot frame constitution for themselves. So, a committee was constituted to draft Swaraj Constitution. Attempts were made to inculcate sense of security among minorities. The landmark development in the field of fundamental rights in India is the Nehru Committee report of 1928. It stated, first care should be to have fundamental rights guaranteed in a manner which will not permit its withdrawal. The report on the rights was on the lines of post-war European and American constitutions. The Nehru Committee report had a vital influence even on framing of the Indian Constitution. Out of 16 clauses recommended by Nehru Committee report, 10 clauses were included in the fundamental rights and 3 clauses in the directive principles of the state policy of the Indian Constitution. Karachi Resolution of 1931 gave a new twist and thrust for the demand of socio-economic conditions to enjoy the rights. The reason is that if there are no conditions to exercise the rights will be useless. So that is why in Karachi Resolution they have mentioned specifically about socio-economic conditions to enjoy these rights. Negative rights have been given positive orientation. It was both the Declaration of Rights of Humanitarian Socialist Manifesto. Political freedoms must include real economic freedom of starving millions. The resolution of Karachi had the stamp of Gandhi and also influence of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The Government of India Act of 1935, which was brought a sort of revulsion among the Indian leadership, did not provide for any right except right to property to the then Jamindars and property people. Earlier, a delegation at Round Table Conference, when it demanded the inclusion of rights, this was negatived and rejected. The view expressed was that the surest way of securing the destruction of fundamental rights was to include it as such in constitutional instrument. That was the answer the leadership of India has got. Sapru Committee report tried to secure certain fundamental rights. It was making a distinction between justiciable and non-justiciable rights as a standing warning to all, and it wanted to allay the fears of minorities through constitutional guarantees. Friends, I should tell you, the Constituent Assembly did not accept the British model. Instead, it started to protect the rights of minorities and also tried to incorporate charter of negative and positive rights. Initially, fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy were in one basket. They were together. Subsequently, they were separated to make it justiciable and non-justiciable rights. That means fundamental rights are enforceable. Directive principles of the state policy, even though they are fundamental in the governance of the country, They are not enforceable in any court of law. Inspiration for securing the rights through a document came from United States experience, United Nations Charter on Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and several analogous provisions in other world constitutions. If you go through the constitution, you will know how many constitutions have given inspiration for adoption of the Indian constitution. However, the pathetic thing is that the pangs of Partition 2 vitally influenced in making the fundamental rights, especially Article 22. Fundamental rights were to be framed among the carnage of fundamental wrongs. The Constituent Assembly seriously started its deliberations during March 1947, even though it was constituted in the year 1946. The framers strive to strike a balance between individual rights with social needs on one hand, social control on the other hand. They are subject to reasonable restrictions, limitations, and they were provided specifically in the Constitution itself. The reasonable restrictions, for instance, with reference to Article 19, 6 fundamental freedoms were given. Restrictions were mentioned from Article 19, Clause 2 to Clause 6. The rights were not to be abridged easily. Specifically, it is stated that state shall not make any law which takes away or abridges fundamental rights. Not only that, even the pre-existing laws were prohibited if they are against the principles of the fundamental rights. Originally, due process clause was discarded in the Constitution when Sir B.N. Rao had a discussion with Justice Frankfurter. He preferred the expression procedure established by law as we see now under Article 21. But nonetheless, after the famous Maneka Gandhi's case, you will find that the due process clause is brought once again through judicial interpretations. There are certain limitations on the exercise of fundamental rights during emergency. Wide definition of state is given under Article 12 to cover governmental hierarchy and agencies and instrumentalities of the state. The expression law is defined under Article 30 itself, which covers various aspects of law, including delegated legislation. Friends, I should tell you, certain guarantees, certain rights were given only to citizens. For example, you can see under Article 15, Clause 1. State shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds of only religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Guaranteed only to citizens. Similarly, 15, Clause 2. 16, Clause 1. With regard to guarantee equal opportunity in the matters of public employment or appointment is given only to students, rather citizens. 16 Clause 2, 16 Clause 4, 6 fundamental freedoms under Article 19, 29 Clause 1, again non-discriminatory clause. These are all confined only to the citizens. Certain rights are made available even against other persons also. For example, equality. State shall not deny any person equality before law or equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. It is for any person. Article 21. No person shall be deprived of life or personal liberty against other except according to procedure established by law. A fundamental feature of the Indian Constitution is that it has guaranteed constitutional remedy for violation of fundamental rights, and that itself is a fundamental right. When Ambedkar was put a question, which is the most important article, you think, under the Constitution, unhesitantly, he said Article 32 because it gives constitutional remedies against fundamental rights. How can you call the rights guaranteed under the Indian Constitution as fundamental rights? Why our constitutional makers did not prefer the expression human rights, did not prefer the expression Bill of Rights? Why they opted for fundamental rights? The reasons are that fundamental rights can be changed only by way of amendment. That is number one. And then most of these rights now, after Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, AR 1973 Supreme Court page number 1461, they were made into part of basic structure. That is one test. Second one is that once Article 13 says state shall not take away or abridge fundamental rights, it gives the scope for judicial review. The third reason is that it has provided the remedies for violation of these rights. In some countries, not only in some countries, even the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they do not stand all the above tests. Certain human rights, they do not form part of fundamental rights in India. The Bill of Rights or the List of Rights, no doubt. They are entrenched under the American Constitution, no doubt. But Bill of Rights can also be framed through an ordinary statutory law as in England. So, there is, of course, technical, minor difference between all the three expressions: fundamental rights, human rights, and then Bill of Rights. Now, let us see the scheme of fundamental rights under the Indian Constitution. I was explaining to you certain fundamental rights while dealing with the framing of the Constitution itself. Even though Articles 12 to 35 deal with fundamental rights, first two rights, they are general in nature. Article 12 gives you the definition of state for the purpose of Part 3. In this part 3, for the purpose of fundamental rights, unless the context otherwise requires, state includes government and Parliament of India, government and legislature of each of the states, or local or other authorities within the territory of India under the control of government of India. Similarly, if you see Article 13, there lies a general prohibition of passing laws or on pre-existing laws of the Constitution which are inconsistent or in contravention with the fundamental rights. They are wide to the extent of inconsistency, to the extent of contravention, and that is also a general provision. It also gives you the definition of law. It also gives you the definition of law in force. Whereas the other things are specific rights. Right to equality is dealt from Article 14 to 18. Friends, I should tell you, Article 14 is the genus, general principle of equality. Article 15 to 18, they give species. For example, Article 14 says, state shall not deny any person equality before law or equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Even though it has used that equality shall not be denied, the word discrimination was not used at the time when the Constitution was made. As Ambedkar said, India was entering into life of contradictions. Several discriminatory practices were there. So in order to thwart those things, they have specifically mentioned these discriminatory clauses, they are prohibited, unspecified, prohibited, markers are there. Under Article 15, 16. Article 17 abolishes untouchability. Article 18 abolishes titles not being military or academic. Similarly, next group of articles you will find under right to freedom. Articles 19 to 22. If you see, Article 19 gives you 6 fundamental freedoms which are considered to be bulwark of any democratic nature. But they are not absolute rights. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom to assemble peacefully and without arms, freedom to form associations or unions, freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India, freedom to settle or reside in any part of the territory of India, freedom to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. These are the 6 fundamental freedoms. Nonetheless, they are not absolute rights, and reasonable restrictions by virtue of Article 19, Clause 2 to 6 can be placed on these rights. Article 20 gives you wonderfully certain safeguards of evidentiary value. The first one is, no person shall be punished retrospectively ex post facto law in criminal matters which with increased punishment or penalty is prohibited. Article 20 Clause 2 states that no person shall be subject twice in jeopardy. No person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. And 20 Clause 3, it is a privilege against self-incrimination. In recent times, you will be hearing number of cases reading in the newspapers as well about this. Article 21, simple in its form and voluminous in its content. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. By expansive interpretation, the Supreme Court of India brought content to this article. Right to life doesn't mean mere animal existence, it is more than that. Living with human dignity and worth. All the rights, unenumerated rights, are brought into Article 21. Number of rights, including right against solitary confinement, prison jurisprudence, compensation, environmental protection, right to education, all these things were brought into it. And another thing is that personal liberty was expanded. Similarly, procedure established by law doesn't mean any procedure in the enactment. That procedure must be fair, just and reasonable. After Maneka Gandhi's case, it is an interesting thing to note and discuss these cases, and you will be noting all these things in future lectures. And then Article 22, it is a peculiar thing in a democratic nation. As I have told you, it was incorporated with a view and expectation to protect the nascent republic against vociferous tendencies. It gives you preventive detention, but safeguards are also given. First two, they give safeguards against ordinary arrest and detention. From clauses 4 to 7, again they give against preventive detention certain safeguards. And then right against exploitation, forced labor, beggar, and against child labor, all these things you will find from Article 23 to 24. Right to freedom of religion, Articles 25 to 28. Besides that, cultural and educational rights, though they have mentioned the caption as cultural and educational rights, in fact, most of it, especially under Article 30, Clause 1, you will find protection for minorities. Any minority based upon religion or language shall have the right to establish and administer educational institution of their choice. And as I have told you, a wonderful article, Right to Constitutional Remedies for Violation of Fundamental Rights, you will find. Though it is often claimed that Bill of Rights of the United States is the source of fundamental rights, there are many differences. The expansive interpretation given by the Supreme Court has given vital content to these rights. Now we go beyond what they expect in the United States of America. Now I will give a brief nature of fundamental rights. In the preamble, you must have seen, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation, etc. You have noted. So, these fundamental rights are logical consequences of preambular aspirations. The preambular aspirations are sought to be realized, as Granville Austin has noted, through fundamental rights. It is a social document and an economic document too. Declaration of rights as a cementing force to otherwise fragmented society was sought to be achieved. Minority groups were given necessary assurance. Fundamental rights protect both substantive as well as procedural rights. It is not confined only to substantive rights. They are guaranteed under Article 14, 19 or 21, which are considered to be golden triangle of the Indian Constitution. Equality, freedom and life and personal liberty, all these things considered to be golden triangle of the Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights are sought to be read with directive principles and fundamental duties. And friends, I should tell you, the judiciary, by its liberal interpretation, brought many of the unenforceable directive principles of the state policy into the gamut of fundamental rights. Judiciary is the sentinel of the while to safeguard the fundamental rights. These rights are the limitations on the exercise of the power. That is why we used to say they guarantee constitutionalism, limited government and government with limitation. They are subject to expansive, as I have told you, and liberal interpretation. Since Maneka Gandhi's case, there are several unenumerated rights that are brought into the purview of fundamental rights. The attempt of the court is to expand and reach the ambit of fundamental rights rather than to attenuate their meaning and content by process of judicial construct. In Undi Krishna's case specifically, they have stated the court need not confine itself to the specified rights under Part 3 or Fundamental Rights Act. Political, social and economic changes occurring in the country may entail the recognition of new rights, and the law in its eternal youth grows to meet social demands. In their expansive interpretation, the Supreme Court is often guided by International Declaration of Human Rights. Look at Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer's statement. Human rights jurisprudence in India has constitutional status. The application of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and principles thereof may have to be read, if need to be, into domestic jurisprudence, and that was the observation made by the Supreme Court. Look at the famous quotation of Justice Bhagavati in Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, AR 1978, Supreme Court, page number 597, yet page number 619. To quote him, he said, "These fundamental rights represent the basic value cherished by the people of this country since the Vedic times, and they are calculated to protect the dignity of the individual and recreate conditions in which every human being can develop his personality to the fullest extent. He weave a pattern of guarantee on the basic structure of human rights and impose negative obligations on the state not to encroach on individual liberty in its various dimensions. This is a wonderful definition, rather observation made by Justice Bhagavathi. Now, a cursory look at the comparative table of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the fundamental rights that are guaranteed under the Indian Constitution show you that almost we have guaranteed everything except certain things like nationality and all these things for the purpose of asylum. Right to liberty and security of person under Article 3 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights is guaranteed under Article 21. Prohibition of slavery under Universal Declaration of Human Rights under Article 4 is guaranteed under Article 23. Friends, I should specifically tell you, under Article 14, when we have guaranteed equality before law and equal protection of law, you should remember Article 7 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Same expression has been used, and non-discriminatory clause also was used. Right to effective remedy that was provided in Universal Declaration of Human Rights has its reflection under Article 32. Against arbitrary arrest and detention, you have guarantees under Article 22 as well as Article 21. Right against ex post facto law under Article 11 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you will find place under Article 20. Right to freedom of movement, you will find under Article 19, Clause D. Right to property, which you can find under Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was a part of fundamental rights previously, prior to 1978, prior to Constitutional 44th Amendment Act. However, it has been deleted from the head of fundamental rights. Now you will find it as an ordinary constitutional right under Article 300A. Freedom of conscience and religion, you will find it under Article 25. Freedom of opinion and expression, you will find it under Article 19(1)(a). Freedom to assemble, 19(1)(b). Right to equal access to public services, under Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you will find under Article 16, Clause 1. Right to social security, you will find under Directive Principles of the State Policy and also under Article 29, Clause 1. Right to form trade unions, under Article 19(1)(c) you will find. The other rights mentioned are interpreted as unenumerated rights by the courts in their expansive interpretation of Article 14, 19 and 21. Economic and social and cultural rights also, you will find most of them under Directive Principles of the State Policy, like right to work, equal pay for equal work, right to just and favorable remuneration, right to rest and leisure, right to standard of living, right to freedom of education, right to social order. Friends, I should tell you, you will find all these things under Article 41, 39, 43 and 38 of the Directive Principles of the State Policy. But one specific thing, free education, 45, now you will also find under Article 21A of the fundamental rights, which has been inserted by way of amendment. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.